The mysterious signal. For thousands of years, the galaxy had known nothing but peace. The various races and species of the universe lived in harmony under the watchful eyes of the Galactic Council. There had been no major conflicts for as long as anyone could remember. Even those in the farthest reaches of space, beyond the influence of the Council, lived in relative isolation. There were no wars, no devastating battles, just quiet, steady progress. But that peace was about to be shattered. It began with a simple, strange signal. At first it was so faint that no one noticed it. It was almost as if it were a background noise, a whisper in the vast emptiness of space. Yet it was different from any natural phenomenon. It wasn't coming from a star, a planet, or any known source of communication. It was entirely new. The Galactic Council had seen many signals in its time, but nothing like this. It was a series of patterns that seemed almost too perfect, too deliberate. And the message. That's what made it all the more mysterious. Humanity is coming. At first, many thought it was a joke. Who would send such a message from so far away? What species would dare to broadcast something so cryptic and bold? It made no sense. But after weeks of monitoring the signal, the Council realized that it was real. The signal was coming from the far edge of the galaxy, from a region that had never been explored. No one knew anything about that area, and no one had ever ventured so far out into space. The Galactic Council had always believed that the farthest corners of the galaxy were nothing more than empty, uncharted space. But this signal was proof that there was something, or someone, out there. The Council immediately convened, summoning leaders and experts from across the galaxy. The members sat in a large, circular room, staring at the data. As the transmissions were replayed again and again, the room fell silent. Every race and species represented in the Council had its own set of theories, but none could explain the signal. "What does it mean?" asked Commander Carr, the leader of the Spire, a race known for its intelligence and precision. "Humanity. Who are they? And why would they send such a message?" "It's impossible," said Ambassador Gyra, the insectoid representative from the Kokar system. "The distance between us and this signal is far beyond anything we've ever encountered. There are no records of any species out there." "We don't know who they are," replied Captain Varn, the human representative, his voice tinged with disbelief. "But if this message is real, we must take it seriously. No one has sent us a message like this before, especially not from a region so unexplored. Humanity could be a new species we've never encountered." The Council's leaders were all aware of the importance of the situation. For centuries, the Council had controlled the flow of information in the galaxy. The discovery of a new species, especially one capable of sending such a deliberate and powerful signal, was unlike anything they had ever faced. "We cannot ignore it," said the Prime Chancellor, a towering figure from the Sorith race, who held the highest seat of power in the Galactic Council. "We will need to investigate. We must send an expedition to find out who, or what, this humanity is." A few of the members were hesitant. They'd never dealt with a species that posed such a mysterious threat. What if this humanity came with hostility? What if their message was a warning of an impending invasion? Could it be a trap? Commander Carr questioned. "What if they are trying to lure us into a false sense of security? We don't know what they are capable of." Captain Varn, however, spoke up again. "Humanity may have just arrived, but we don't know their intentions yet. We must approach them carefully, but with respect. If they are sending a message across the galaxy, they likely have a reason." The debate continued for hours, but eventually the Council reached a decision. A fleet would be dispatched, led by a diverse crew from all races within the Council, to the edge of the galaxy where the signal originated. Their mission: to discover the truth behind the message. The fleet would leave immediately, but as it prepared to depart, something strange happened. The signal, which had been steady and constant, suddenly stopped. There was complete silence. A chill ran through the room. Had they waited too long? Had the mysterious species behind the signal grown aware of their approach and decided to cut off contact? Had they been warning the galaxy all along, and now it was too late? Ambassador Gyra's many eyes scanned the empty space, her antennae twitching in unease. "What does this mean?" she whispered. "We don't know," Captain Varn replied quietly. "But we must proceed. Whatever happens, we must be ready for what's to come." The fleet set off, traveling into the uncharted darkness of space. They knew nothing about this humanity, but they were determined to find out. The journey would be long, and the unknown stretched before them like a shadow. The Council had made its decision. The fate of the galaxy was now in the hands of the fleet, and humanity's mysterious arrival. Would they bring peace, or would they bring destruction? One thing was certain: the galaxy would never be the same. The journey begins. The silence in the vast expanse of space was deafening. The fleet of ships, each representing a different species from across the galaxy, traveled through the cold, dark void towards the unknown. The commanders, each one experienced and battle-hardened, had never faced a mission like this before. They had traveled to distant star systems, fought off pirates, and made uneasy alliances. But this was different. The disappearance of the mysterious signal only added to the growing tension. Every member of the fleet knew they were headed into uncharted space, but none of them could shake the feeling that something important, something huge, was waiting for them. Humanity had sent a message. Now the fleet had to find them, or risk the galaxy losing the most significant opportunity in centuries. Commander Carr of the Sphere race was at the helm of the Lid ship. Her species had always been known for their cold, calculated approach to everything, especially in military matters. However, today, even she couldn't avoid the nagging sensation of unease that had settled in her gut. "They've stopped transmitting," she said aloud, her voice steady but betraying a hint of concern. "What does this mean? Were we too slow? Did we miss our chance?" "I can't say," replied Captain Varn, who stood beside her in the command center. His human eyes scanned the control panel in front of him, tracking their progress. "But we can't turn back now. We need to reach the source of the signal. Whatever or whoever we find, we have to know." The rest of the fleet was close behind them, with each ship in tight formation. The Council had spared no resources for this mission, and it showed in the impressive fleet that now sped through space. Their ships were the finest in the galaxy, equipped with the latest technology, but none of it could protect them from the unknown. As the fleet ventured farther into the unexplored region, the stars grew dimmer, and the darkness seemed to swallow them whole. The universe had always felt vast, but now, surrounded by this endless black, it felt suffocating. Even the veteran captains couldn't help but feel the weight of the unknown pressing in on them. "Keep your eyes peeled," Commander Carr ordered. "We're entering a region no one's ever charted. We have no idea what we'll encounter." The atmosphere was tense. It wasn't just the crew members of the Sphere vessel who felt it. Even the Quokar, a race known for their advanced understanding of the cosmos, were on edge. Ambassador Gyra of the Quokar race stood by the observation window, her numerous eyes scanning the stars. "It's almost as if the galaxy itself is holding its breath," she murmured. "We don't know what awaits us, but we must be prepared for anything." As the fleet approached the outer edges of known space, the view outside shifted. The stars began to spread out, forming vast clusters of light and darkness. The infinite void of space had always been awe-inspiring, but now it felt ominous, as though something vast and terrible was waiting just beyond the horizon. "We're close," said Captain Varn, his voice barely above a whisper. "We need to prepare for what comes next." The tension among the crew had reached its peak. Each officer was now waiting for a sign, some hint as to what they were about to find. Would they encounter a species that could change the course of galactic history? Or had they made a grave mistake by traveling into the unknown? Then something caught their attention. A faint flicker of light appeared on the ship's sensors. It was too faint to make out at first, but it wasn't a natural phenomenon. It was a signal. No, it was a craft, a ship. "Hold steady," Commander Carr said. "We found something. Prepare for contact." The crew gathered, eyes fixed on the monitors. As the fleet closed in, they could make out the outline of the ship, a massive, sleek vessel, unlike anything they had ever seen. It was enormous, the size of a small moon. The hull was dark, almost black, absorbing the light around it, and its surface seemed to shimmer with energy. It didn't look like any design the Council had ever encountered. This is it," whispered Ambassador Gyra, her voice trembling. "This is the ship that sent the signal." The crew was silent, but their thoughts raced. What kind of species could build such a ship? What were their intentions? And most importantly, what did they want with humanity? As the fleet closed in, the unknown vessel suddenly shifted position, almost as though it had sensed their approach. The massive craft drifted through the emptiness of space like a predator waiting in the shadows. For a moment, it felt as if time had stopped. Then it happened. A low hum echoed through the ship's communication systems. At first, it was faint, but then it grew louder, like a rumbling thunderstorm in the distance. The fleet's sensors flickered, and the message was clear. This wasn't a normal transmission. This was something far more powerful, something beyond their comprehension. The lights on the lead ship flickered, and a strange pattern appeared on the display. It was the same code, the same pattern as the original signal that had first been detected. But this time, it was different. It was more structured, more deliberate, and it was aimed directly at them. "They've seen us," said Captain Varn. "They're responding." The room fell silent again. The crew held their breath, waiting for the next move. Were they about to make contact with a species that could change the galaxy, or were they about to face an unimaginable danger? The fleet drifted closer to the strange ship. Every eye was trained on the screen, every crew member on high alert. And then it came, a message, clear as day. "Humanity, you have arrived. First contact." The message echoed through the fleet's comms system. The words were simple, but they carried an immense weight. "Humanity, you have arrived." The voice, or whatever it was calm, neutral, and yet it felt like something more. Commander Carr stood frozen, staring at the display. The entire crew aboard the Spire ship could feel the tension in the air. The unknown ship had clearly acknowledged their presence. But what did it mean? "Humanity, you have arrived." The words repeated in Carr's mind. They felt almost expectant, as if the message had been waiting centuries for this very moment. "Captain Varn, what do we do?" Commander Carr finally spoke, her voice hoarse. "We have to respond." "But how? What do they want?" Varn turned to her, his face tense, but determined. "We respond with caution. We don't know who or what we're dealing with, but humanity's arrival is no coincidence. This ship, this signal, it's too intentional." As the fleet's command center buzzed with frantic conversations, Carr's thoughts raced. The words from the message felt heavy, almost like a command rather than a greeting. Who could it be? Could it be another species? Or something older? Something far beyond their understanding? Gyra, the Quokar ambassador, stood by the observation window, her many eyes fixed on the strange ship ahead. "It's not like anything I've ever seen," she said softly. "It's technology. It's energy signature. It's ancient." Her words hit the crew like a bucket of cold water. Ancient. How could something ancient be this advanced? The ship in front of them was beyond anything they had encountered, not just in size, but in technology. The Spire fleet, with all its might, was dwarfed by the ship's sheer presence. "We're still in their territory," Carr said firmly, trying to keep control of the growing uncertainty around her. "Let's not forget that. We don't know if they're welcoming us or preparing for something else." Captain Varn nodded. "Agreed. Keep the fleet on high alert. We'll wait for their next move." The fleet hovered in space, its ships floating in the void like small fish swimming around a vast, ancient predator. The galaxy beyond was silent, watching. Every ship in the fleet was prepared for any possible outcome. The next few moments could change everything. As the fleet hovered, the massive alien vessel remained eerily still. Its surface seemed to shift, almost as if it were alive, reacting to something in the void. But Carr couldn't place her finger on it. The silence stretched on for what seemed like hours, but in reality, it was mere minutes. Then it happened. The massive ship, without warning, released a pulse of light, a beacon that shot into the dark expanse of space. The pulse wasn't just a signal. It was a message, a visible, powerful force that seemed to draw all attention toward it. It reverberated throughout the entire fleet, forcing everyone to take notice. Jaira's voice broke the stillness. The light. It's not just a message. It's a key, a beacon. It's meant to draw others in. Carr's heart skipped a beat. Draw others in. Who else is out there? We have no idea, Jaira replied, her voice trembling slightly. But I fear it is something much larger than we ever anticipated. Suddenly, the quiet was broken by a loud beep from the communication panel. The signal had been received. The strange ship had transmitted something back. This time, a burst of images. They flashed across the screen so quickly, it was almost impossible to make sense of them. Ancient symbols, cryptic maps, and images of unknown species. The symbols had no clear meaning, and yet there was a sense of familiarity to them. Can you decipher it? Carr asked the ship's linguist. The linguist, a young human named Riker, squinted at the screen, tapping furiously on his console. He was the best the fleet had when it came to language analysis, but this was unlike anything he had ever seen. I can't, he said, frustration in his voice, but I can tell this is no ordinary language. This is something older than anything we've encountered. It's like they're telling us something, warning us, or preparing us. The unknown ship continued to shine with the pulse of its light, and then something remarkable happened. The light from the ship faded, and a new message appeared on the fleet's communication screen. It was not in words, but in a symbol, a simple circle, glowing faintly. For a long moment, no one spoke. No one knew what it meant, but Commander Carr could feel it, a deep, foreboding sense that whatever was happening, it was about to escalate. "Get us closer," she ordered. "Closer?" Captain Varn asked, his eyes wide. "Commander, we don't know what that symbol means. We're already on edge. We should wait for further signals." "I know," Carr interrupted, "but we can't wait forever. This symbol, it's an invitation, and we need to accept it." Reluctantly, Varn gave the order, and the fleet began to move, cautiously inching closer to the enormous alien ship. The crew could feel the tension rising with every passing moment. Whatever lay ahead, they were walking into the unknown. The galaxy would never be the same. As the fleet drew closer, the ship before them seemed to come alive. The faint pulse of light began to brighten, and the alien vessel shifted in space, its energy growing stronger. There was no turning back now. The message was clear. Humanity had arrived. But what would the galaxy do in response? And so, the first step into the unknown was taken. The encounter. As the fleet advanced cautiously, the massive alien vessel loomed ever closer, its gleaming surface reflecting the stars in eerie patterns. Commander Carr's hands gripped the armrests of her chair, her fingers white with the tension of the moment. Each passing second felt like an eternity. Her mind raced with the possibilities, and yet she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The alien ship, seemingly alive, continued to pulse with light, shifting in ways that defied conventional understanding. It was as though the ship itself was waiting for them. But for what? "We're close enough now," Carr said, her voice low but steady. "Hail them. Let's see if they respond." The communications officer, a veteran named Captain Varn, tapped his console and activated the ship's long-range transmitter. Moments later, a low hum filled the room, followed by the flicker of an incoming message. The screen showed only static at first. Then, slowly, the static cleared, revealing a figure. It was an alien, tall, slender, with elongated features that reminded the crew of something out of a dream. Their skin was dark, with patterns of silver lines running across their body, almost like glowing tattoos. But the most disturbing part was their eyes, huge, black, and unblinking, giving the impression of something ancient and far beyond human comprehension. The voice that came through was cold, yet authoritative. "Humanity, you have entered our domain." The voice sent a chill through the room. The alien's words were direct, but the tone carried an air of finality. The ship's immense presence pressed down on the fleet, as if it were aware of their every movement. Carr didn't flinch. "We come in peace. We have questions. Who are you? What is your purpose?" The alien's expression remained unchanged, but the tension in the air thickened. For a long moment, there was silence, as though the alien was considering the question. Then it spoke again. "You are not the first to ask, but your arrival changes everything." The words struck like a blow. It wasn't just the statement, it was the weight behind it. The meaning was clear. Humanity wasn't just a new player in the galaxy. They were important. But why? What made humanity stand out so dramatically? Before Carr could respond, the alien's voice continued. "You are the result of a long-awaited event, and now you must make a choice." A shiver ran down Carr's spine. A choice. What kind of choice could this alien be talking about? They hadn't even begun to understand what was happening, and already they were being asked to decide something monumental. "Choice," Carr repeated, her voice laced with confusion. "What kind of choice? We don't even know what this is about. In time, you will understand. But for now, you must decide." The alien's voice grew more intense, almost demanding. "Join us, or stand alone. The consequences will be far-reaching." There it was. The choice. But what were the consequences of standing alone? And who were they? Captain Varn stepped forward, his voice steady but filled with the anxiety of the unknown. "We need more information. You can't just expect us to make a decision based on cryptic words and vague threats. We need to understand." The alien's eyes flickered. For a moment, it almost seemed amused. But that amusement was quickly replaced by something darker. "You will learn soon enough. You have already made the first step. The galaxy is vast, and power is not easily given. If you stand with us, you will have allies. If not, you will face what no other species has ever survived. The choice is yours, human." The transmission ended abruptly, and the screen flickered back to static. Silence descended on the bridge. Carr's mind was spinning. What had just happened? The stakes were higher than she had imagined. This wasn't just a meeting of two species, it was a turning point for humanity. A choice that could shape the future of the entire galaxy. "We need to prepare," Carr said, breaking the silence. "We have no idea what we're up against. We need to gather information on them, on the galaxy's power structures. We need allies. If we're to make this choice, we need to understand both sides." The crew nodded, knowing that the weight of this decision wasn't just on Carr's shoulders, but on every single one of them. They were no longer just explorers. They were players on a galactic stage. Meanwhile, the massive alien ship loomed outside the fleet, its faint light glowing against the black void of space. Carr's gaze was fixed on it, her mind working furiously. The alien's words echoed in her mind. "The galaxy is vast, and power is not easily given." This was no ordinary encounter. This was the beginning of something much larger. Humanity was standing at the precipice of galactic history. But what path would they choose? The choice lay ahead, and whatever it was, it would determine the fate of humanity. The decision looms. The silence on the bridge was thick with tension as the crew of the Vanguard tried to make sense of the cryptic message they had just received. Commander Carr paced slowly in front of the observation window, her eyes fixed on the massive alien vessel that floated ominously in the distance. It was an imposing sight, one that filled the crew with both awe and fear. "What do we do now?" Lieutenant Soren asked, his voice barely above a whisper. He had been a part of countless missions, but this was unlike anything he had ever encountered. They were no longer in control of the situation. They were the ones being watched. "We gather information," Carr said, her voice sharp. "We need to know exactly what we're dealing with before we make any decisions. We can't afford to rush into this without understanding the consequences." "We can't just sit here forever, though," Lieutenant Rhea, the tactical officer, chimed in. "We have to make a decision soon. The longer we wait, the more vulnerable we become." Carr nodded but remained focused. They were in a dangerous position, and they had no idea how much time they had before the alien ship made its next move. The situation was more delicate than any of them had ever imagined. "Let's get a team together," Carr decided. "We'll send a recon ship out to scan the area. We need to know everything. This alien ship, their technology, their motives, everything. I won't make any decision until we're sure of our options." The crew fell into action quickly, as they all knew the stakes had just been raised beyond what any of them had anticipated. The quiet hum of the Vanguard was replaced by a sense of urgency as they prepared the recon ship. Time was no longer on their side. Meanwhile, in the alien ship, something stirred. The immense vessel that had watched humanity for so long seemed to shift slightly, as if acknowledging the human fleet's movements. But there was no sign of aggression, only a chilling stillness that was more terrifying than any battle posture. The aliens, it seemed, were in no rush. Hours passed, but Carr remained deep in thought, staring at the screen in her quarters. The data from the recon ship was coming in slowly. So far, nothing concrete had been found. The alien ship remained strangely passive, almost as if it were waiting for humanity to make its next move. The comm panel on Carr's desk blinked to life. It was Captain Varn. "Commander, you need to see this." Varn's voice was grave. Carr was at the comm panel in an instant. On the screen, Captain Varn appeared, his face tense. Behind him, the recon team stood in silence, their faces grim. "We found something," Varn continued. "The ship, it's not just a ship. It's a city, an entire self-sustaining ecosystem. There's evidence of millions of life forms on board, but that's not all." He paused, as if choosing his words carefully. "There's something embedded deep within the ship's core. It's technology we don't recognize, but it's massive, beyond anything we've ever seen. It's like they've tapped into some kind of energy we've only dreamed of. And whatever it is, it's active. We don't know what it does, but it's powerful." Carr's mind raced. The implications were staggering. They had been assuming that the alien ship was a weapon, but now it seemed more like a fortress, an entire world unto itself. And then there was the technology. It could be the key to understanding the aliens and the warning they had received. "We need more time," Carr said, her voice low. "Prepare the fleet for a full-scale scan of the ship. We need to understand that technology before we make any further moves. We can't make a mistake here." As the fleet began to surround the alien ship, a tense stillness settled over the Vanguard. The crew worked tirelessly, running diagnostics and calculations, trying to decipher the alien technology. Hours passed, but each scan revealed more questions than answers. And then, just as hope began to fade, the crew received an unexpected transmission. It was a simple signal, a basic series of pulses. But to Carr, it was the first real communication from the aliens since their initial encounter. "You have been given time. Now, the choice remains." The words echoed through Carr's mind. The choice. The same choice the alien had warned them about. Humanity was on the precipice of something monumental, and the time to act was drawing closer. "Bring the fleet into position," Carr ordered. "We need to be ready for whatever happens next. This will be our moment. We either stand with them or stand alone." and I intend to understand what that truly means before we make our decision." The crew worked in a flurry of activity, the weight of Carr's words sinking in. The choice was upon them. But could they truly trust the aliens' words? Were they allies or enemies waiting to strike? The stakes were high, and the answers were still uncertain. The first encounter. The bridge of the Vanguard was bathed in the cold blue glow of the alien ship. The tension was unbearable, and every crew member knew that the next few moments could change everything. The mysterious signal they had received echoed in Carr's mind, a constant reminder of the enormity of the choice they were about to make. Commander Carr stood at the helm, her hands gripping the sides of the console as she studied the alien ship's movements. The massive vessel had remained still for the past several hours, almost as if it were waiting for them to make the first move. But the silence was deafening, and it felt like time was slowly running out. "We've completed the full scan, Commander," Lieutenant Soren reported. "We've mapped every part of the ship we can reach. The internal structure is unlike anything we've ever seen. It's almost as if it's grown organically, not built. But there's no sign of weapons or hostile intent. It's a mystery." Carr nodded slowly. The lack of weaponry had been puzzling. The alien ship was enormous, much larger than anything humanity had ever encountered, but it didn't appear to be a battle vessel. Still, the implications were staggering. The crew was no closer to understanding what it all meant. "Any signs of life?" Carr asked. Soren hesitated before responding. "There are life signatures, but they're unlike any species we've encountered. It's difficult to classify them. It's almost as if the ship itself is alive." Carr frowned. The notion of a living ship made her uneasy. The idea that they could be dealing with something far beyond their understanding was terrifying. But it was at that moment when the Vanguard shuddered. The ship's sensors blared to life, signaling something had changed. Carr's heart raced as she turned to the tactical station. "What just happened?" she demanded. "Lieutenant Rhea." The tactical officer quickly adjusted her console. "The alien ship has opened a path. It's inviting us inside." The words hung in the air, heavy with significance. The alien ship, which had been silent and unmoving for so long, had suddenly extended a passage, as though welcoming them in. But what did this mean? Was it a trap or was it a genuine invitation? The crew of the Vanguard was on the verge of a monumental discovery, but the stakes had never been higher. "We can't ignore it," Carr said, making her decision. "Prepare to move in. But stay sharp. I want every weapon system on standby. We don't know what we're walking into." The crew quickly sprang into action. Every eye on the bridge was locked on the alien ship as it slowly began to pull them in. The passageway was vast, stretching far beyond the reach of their sensors. It felt like the walls themselves were alive, as though they were being drawn into something immense and incomprehensible. As the Vanguard moved deeper into the ship, Carr felt the weight of the moment. They were entering the heart of the unknown. The feeling was overwhelming. Every instinct screamed for caution. But the curiosity, the need to understand what was happening, pushed her forward. The bridge crew remained silent, each of them lost in their own thoughts, processing the enormity of what was taking place. This was no longer just a mission. It was the beginning of something far greater. They were about to make contact with a species that could change everything they knew about the universe. And then, without warning, the ship's interior began to change. The smooth, organic structure shifted, forming into corridors that seemed to pulse with an eerie light. It was as if the ship itself was alive and responding to their presence. The walls seemed to close in on them, yet there was no fear, only awe. "It's beautiful," Lieutenant Soren whispered, his voice filled with wonder. The ship continued to move forward, deeper into the unknown. The entire crew was on edge, but Carr couldn't shake the feeling that they were being guided, led into the heart of something they could never have imagined. The corridors twisted and turned, leading them into the depths of the alien ship. There was no sign of other life forms, But the strange energy around them was undeniable. It was as though the ship itself was watching them, waiting for them to make the next move. "This is it," Carr said quietly. "We're about to meet them. We need to be prepared for anything." The tension in the air was palpable. The unknown was now within their reach, and the choices they made in the next few moments would shape the future of humanity. Just as the Vanguard came to a stop in a massive chamber, the silence was broken. A low hum filled the room, and a series of glowing symbols appeared on the walls, pulsing with a rhythm that seemed to speak to them. "We're not alone," Carr said, her voice low. "They've been waiting for us." Suddenly, a figure appeared before them. It was unlike anything the crew had ever seen, a being that seemed to shimmer with an ethereal glow, its form constantly shifting. It was alien, yes, but there was something about it that felt familiar. "Welcome," the being said, its voice echoing in their minds. "Humanity has finally arrived." The crew stared in shock. This was it. The moment they had feared and hoped for was now unfolding. The fate of humanity was in the hands of this mysterious entity, and no one knew what would come next. The first contact. The chamber they had entered was unlike anything the crew of the Vanguard had ever experienced. The walls were translucent, pulsing with an ethereal light that seemed to respond to the presence of the ship. The air was thick with an energy that crackled and hummed in their ears, a sensation both alien and ancient. The being that had appeared before them hovered in the center of the room, its form constantly shifting, almost as if it was made of light and shadow. Its voice, when it spoke, reverberated in their minds, bypassing their ears entirely. The crew felt the words as much as they heard them, a deep resonance that made every thought and emotion feel like it was being shared between them all. "Humanity has finally arrived," the being said again, its voice now unmistakable in its calm but powerful tone. "We have awaited you, but not for the reasons you think." Commander Carr's heart raced. The moment they had all been preparing for, the moment that would change everything for humanity, had arrived. But the words the being spoke were cryptic, leaden with meaning that seemed far beyond their understanding. "We have been watching," the being continued, its form shifting into a more distinct shape, now appearing almost human-like in silhouette, though its features remained blurred, as if it were both present and not at the same time. "Your species is unique. You are not like the others." Carr stepped forward, gathering her courage as her voice shook slightly. "What do you mean? What do you want from us?" The being's light flickered, its shimmering surface responding to her question. "We do not want anything. We do not need anything. But we must know what you will choose. Your arrival, it has changed the balance." The crew looked at each other, confusion and fear on their faces. What could this being mean by the balance? And what had their arrival triggered? "We were not meant to discover this place," Carr said, her voice firm. "We only followed the signal." The being paused for a moment, as if considering her words carefully. "The signal," it mused, "was not meant to be found, but it was found. By you. And now the path is open. Humanity has a choice to make." Carr's mind raced. What choice? What was this being talking about? "What choice?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear bubbling inside. "What do you want us to do?" The being's form solidified for just a moment, revealing a face, one that was both alien and somehow familiar, like a vague memory from a dream. Its eyes glowed with an intense light, reflecting an age-old wisdom that stretched beyond the understanding of any human. "You stand at a crossroads," it said, its voice becoming heavier, as though each word carried 1,000 years of history. "The universe is old, and it is weary. Its balance has been maintained for millennia, yet your arrival has disrupted that balance. You have the potential to either restore it or destroy it." The room seemed to grow darker, the energy in the air thickening as the crew members exchanged uneasy glances. The weight of the being's words was suffocating. Carr knew that whatever came next would define the future of humanity. "Restore or destroy?" Carr echoed, her voice tight. "What do you mean? Why are we at fault?" The being's form shifted again, its face momentarily vanishing into a formless blur of light. "Humanity is a paradox. You are both the destroyers and the saviors of the galaxy. Your potential is limitless, but so is your capacity for destruction. You will either tip the balance of the universe toward peace or toward chaos." Carr felt the gravity of the being's words settle deep in her chest. Humanity's arrival in this corner of the galaxy had disturbed something ancient, something that had been carefully maintained for eons. Now, the fate of countless civilizations rested in the hands of her people. "What do you want us to do?" Carr asked again, her voice filled with determination, even as her mind struggled to comprehend the magnitude of the decision they were being forced to make. The being's light flickered and pulsed once more, as if considering her question. Then it spoke again, its voice softer now, though no less powerful. "You will choose," it said. "You will make the decision that will shape the future. We will not guide you. We will not interfere. But know this, your choice will affect not just your own world, but all worlds. The fate of the galaxy is in your hands." The silence that followed was deafening. The crew of the Vanguard stood frozen, every one of them aware that they had just received a warning unlike anything they could have ever anticipated. Humanity had been thrust into the heart of something far greater than themselves, a universe on the brink, where their choices would determine whether peace would reign or war would engulf the stars. But before anyone could speak, before anyone could even process what had just been said, the being's form began to dissolve into the light around them. Its final words echoed through their minds like a final warning. "Make your choice wisely, Commander Carr. Your fate, and the fate of all, depends on it." And just as quickly as it had appeared, the being vanished, leaving only the eerie hum of the ship to fill the silence. Carr stood still for a moment, the weight of the universe pressing down on her shoulders. She had been given a choice, a decision that would change the course of history. But how could she possibly know what was the right thing to do? The crew waited, their eyes on her, and in that moment, Carr realized something that shook her to her core. The galaxy was watching, and whatever choice humanity made, it would echo through the stars for eternity.